Here.
Actually, why don't you get this work? Maybe so they can see it.
Okay, you guys want to see? I'm not pretty.
Oh yeah, you are.
Oh, stop it. So I realized, I'm starting the night off. Jeremy and I are going to bookend this evening's festivities. We're starting it off on a science note. He's going to be ending it on a religious note. We go from science to religion. Only because that's the way they made us do it. And I've got 4 non-long poems that all require a preface, which is just so annoying, especially for like you slam folk over there. I know, but you know, it's a big deal. So the Garifuna, the first poem is called Garifuna. Garifuna are folks who were brought from Africa as slaves, but either through shipwreck or mutiny escaped and settled along the South American and Caribbean coast, South American, East Coast of South America. Their largest population is in Honduras. So this is Garifuna. I hear the ocean's undertow, the tide of yesterday. It whistles them away. Or is it me? I believe in a future tense, post-colonial theorists will cease combing history for narrative sense. It will all be revealed at once, en masse. In movement, there's a pattern to the speed of people and the speed at which they overtake each other. There's a tempo to stiletto against tile in the terminal where every echo resonates. Like fragments of glass pieced together in music, predictably, there's a cadence. Someone drops a coin on a balcony and, by accident or design, a train crosses the Rubicon at night. Hummingbirds know their place in the world. They hover and never forget it. Neutrally buoyant, they dance a seesaw dance to the sugary music of water. Symmetrically, the only way their muscles atrophy. The wailing wind is howling from a punctured drum. I hear they speak 3 languages and refer to themselves in the 3rd. I've seen them drink clear rum for breakfast. They extrude their guts and digest their rivals alive. An apple, a sparrow, Polaris, one man's distinct journey. The heart may beat abnormally. Never mind the charismatic megafauna. Take a boat and exchange it for a grain of sand. And this one is, they all have to do with water. That's the thread. This is just about the difference between people and starfish. It's called advantage. Being bilaterally symmetrical, a line drawn down our center from frontal lobe to phantom tail is the only way we can be evenly distributed. 2 coordinated halves propelled brain first forward by the power of language, we abstract into the traffic we think we see before us. Side glancing required to acknowledge our equally evolved 2-legged linear neighbors. If we turn when we're walking, we have to change direction. With no frontal lobes to lead, no cerebral cortexes to speak of, strafing brainless along the seafloor across the world, brittle stars are radially symmetrical, can be sliced even into infinity. Unlike us upright bipeds, these asteroidea have 5 limbs, thus no obvious front, and drag flat themselves, if selves to us at all. A new study, though, reports they demonstrate highly developed coordination, designate one limb front-facing, while its 2 adjacent neighbors push along. At the slightest crab disturbance in the sand, they can shift lead limb, swiftly changing course. They decide another direction, and they're off. Scientists have long thought bilateral symmetry confers an evolutionary advantage, allowing for directed movement to avoid predators and hunt for food, but the new study, marine biologist or not, whoever is credited with describing in words how hard it is to change, didn't know You can get the benefits of bilateral symmetry without being bilaterally symmetrical was obviously thinking straight with a brain. Yeah, all right. Preface. The immortal jellyfish, or the eternal jellyfish. You guys heard of this? Do you know about this? This shit went down like real recently. They found this jellyfish that once it reaches basically like sexual maturity, it theoretically can continually regenerate its cells and revert to polyp stage over and over and over again. And unless it gets picked off by predators or parasites or disease, like live forever. Forever. Like, that's a game changer. So, and you can't find, like, you can Google it all you want, you find stuff, but like on blogs and on obscure, you know, like basement newspaper websites, it's just, I feel like it's a conspiracy. So this is largely found and all kinds of constraints. It's called Sex Holds the Key, theoretically, parentheses, I don't think you're ready for this jellyfish. Thank you very much.
You need to stop right there.
Okay. Only 5 millimeters in diameter to oceanographers, those religious leaders of the sea. Its most redeeming feature outsizes its minute stature. Turritopsis nutricula lives forever, reverts to polyp following copulation. Did you hear me? Once it reaches sexual maturity, this jellyfish becomes some younger version of itself. Who knew time travel referred to animals below the photic zone? No sooner than hearing the news, you think, dang, I've scuba dived before. Why didn't I realize aliens are what live out beyond the shore? For sure, lazy Googling makes for a loose picture, but your libido got you thinking like a dog, a damn mutt, thinking that if God was dead before, he's back, in gaping hydrozoan form, morphed into boneless fever, but of course, more research is needed. Right. And one more. Thank you guys. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Chocolate. Best hot chocolate in your life. The call is the amniotic sac that babies. We're making leaps here. Just stay with me. In the womb, the baby is encased in the caul. It's called a caul, the amniotic sac. And when water breaks, that's basically the caul breaking. I'm pretty sure. And, you know, sometimes babies are born with part of it here or there, like intact, and like once in a Brazilian, not that many. They get the whole thing. They're born with it completely intact, and it's just like this big bubble around the baby's head. And it's got like all kinds of lore and all kinds of cultures about it. You know, in like Western Europe, in like medieval to Elizabethan days, they thought that it meant that a baby wouldn't drown, and so they would like rub them off, and they'd sell them to sailors. And in like in Africa, when a baby was born with the caul, in like northern Saharan Africa, they believed that they could sense where water was in gourds buried under the earth. Things like Western Europe, Eastern Europe, like they believe that the children would either become like leaders of their people or vampires. Tibetan culture, if your baby was born with a caul, decent chance he'd be the next reincarnated Dalai Lama or a High Lama, like all kinds. So fascinating to me. And there's an epigraph by a poet friend named Sam Whitten. And then it appeared, as though drifting, a tiny half-formed blue face, recently undrowned from its birth waters, almost human. Caul-bearer. 1. Looped lambskin around the ears of the infant. Prior to passage, it was filled with the juices that fueled you before you were a pre-thought. A baby born with one intact faces no threat of drowning, keeps part of his mother with him. Adhered to the head and neck, when expelled into silent suffocation, this full face mask protected you into the angry breathe space other newborns claimed with clamor. Behind the veil, this sack, liquid rich in its encasement, inside the inside, the child, you once detected constellations. The time the moon makes itself into shapes before they are nameable. 2. Chorion and amnion, dual adherent membranes, separate fetal and fluid from uterine wall. Whose molten aluminum and polyvinyl chloride instruments listen to you cannot perceive what it means to see beyond expiration. Your gluey hands weighed the light in the doctor's clinical eyes before you were born, foretold when he would die. In the embryonic sky, it is always night. 3. Occurring roughly once in 80,000, most calls rupture spontaneously during labor. Expedite delivery. If not, the obstetrician makes a small incision in the membrane across the nostrils, as when roasting meat, or the baby will asphyxiate. The call balloons out at birth. Medieval midwives would rub off the remaining membrane onto a sheet of paper, or peel it back to present the mother with an heirloom, memento of her labor, a reminder of the preternatural. If removed too quickly, it leaves the womb, marks you almost human, for life at least. 4. Opening scene. We find our spectral friend calm and bubbles in a flooding basement, non-breathing briefly in the liminal space between a watery dream and the driest grave, settling the tremble around his head, commanding a silence only the undisturbed womb knows, slowing the restless others. 5. Fey child of the bloodline Isis, only you know the moon's true name. You will travel and never tire. Reading fish like scripture, your hands will heal sufferers from great distances, and you will never fear water. Your coming always known by the graveful of mothers that ever gave the world such a seer, you will become a benevolent leader of, if not a vampire.